If you walked away from your business for 2 years, would it be stronger when you return? That's the question that inspired generations of founders to build something that lasts. Running a business takes more than hustle. It takes a leadership team that anticipates what's next. A system that's well-oiled, self-correcting, and capable of growing beyond the founder. CBC Talks is about building businesses that don't just survive, but thrive.
Thank you for another episode of CBC Talks. Today, we are joined by the CEO, president, and owner of Dore Glass, Inc., over in Minnetonka. Sammy Regan, thanks for being here today.
You're welcome.
So the inspiration for the conversation with you is that most teams say they want high standards. Few really appreciate the scoreboard that comes with it, the accountability, the feedback, the metrics, and what that looks like. At Dore Glass, the individual performance of your team, your installation, your installers, and your estimators is a big piece of your culture. It's created a really cool thing. Your team knows where they stand, and they're able to watch how their extra efforts get rewarded. That's a big part of your culture. Tell us about Dore Glass. Who is it? Where's it going?
Well, we've been in business for over 50 years. I bought the company in 2017 from a guy that ran it by scheduling on a paper of 8.5 by 14 inches long, which would get erased a couple times or hidden even. So it was set back in the 70s, the way in which it ran. So I bought it and I said, your inventory, you say you've got 145,000 on your books. He says, no, I really got 300, trying to justify his price. Well, he didn't have 300. He had 750,000 because he never kept track of his inventory. And of that, I had to destroy 250,000 of it because it didn't meet code. So I just recycled it. And then the rest of it, the 500,000, we finally have gotten it down to about 400 or change. But it's managing that inventory and turning that inventory that became such an important part. So you have to have a system to be able to measure those type of things. Well, I took that off of the inventory from my prior expensive experience in the automobile business and applied also metrics of how did our productivity go for certain skill sets, like installers, like your estimators. So I took the skill sets from the automobile business to the service department. Installers would be like your technicians that work on a car, and estimators would be like your service advisors that make a recommendation to what you need to have done. Nowadays, in the automobile business, you go to a service department, that service advisor will also check you out. They got rid of the cashier for the most part. So I've taken a lot of those different aspects of an automobile business and planted them into Dore Glass. So we know what our turnover, our inventory is. We know how many hours we're generating off of production. We know how much our closing ratio is by the number of contacts we have, and then what close, what ones that say, yeah, we'll go ahead and give you the business. And the metrics are different in the automobile business than they are in the subcontracting construction business. In fact, it was surprising how much of a difference it was. In the automobile business, you got somebody coming in, getting that service work done. Well, you've got a captive customer and you're going to do 90, 95% of that work. Well, we're only getting 60 to 63% of the quote requests approved. So how do I go about trying to get that improved is I've got to put a better control system. It's called a CRM, a customer relationship management software. So we went with a product called Top Builder because it interfaces with our ERP Sage 100 contractor. It actually sends the stuff back and forth. So we're going to say from when we have the first contact of the client all the way through until it is a second of a close, that will stay within the CRM. And the rest of it goes within our processes to get the ordered materials, get them here, set up the schedule, and install them, and then get paid.
Sammy, I don't understand. 50 years in business, you've gone without a CRM. Why is now the right time for it? Why did this become so apparent that it was needed?
Because we need to raise our closing percentage. It's got to be closer to 70, 75%. And I could not do it with the way we were currently running.
How did you know?
How did I know what?
How did you know that you couldn't do it the way it was? Why was the CRM the solution?
Because it's been about 8 years I've been trying. I tried to put a CRM in 2018 at the same time that I installed the ERP Sage 100 contractor. I made a critical error then. because they tried they being the provider of the CRM, tried to set up that interface. I spent $75,000 trying to get an API put together. It's ridiculous. It's not that hard to do. They couldn't get it done. I went to 2 vendors to try and get it done. Then I gave up, got burnt out trying to get it done. Then COVID hit. Then after COVID, we had a huge backlog of work. We had to work our way through that. And now that's where I'm at. Now I'm trying to get a CRM, get that closing percentage up, increase the productivity of installers, each individual installer, expanding their skill sets so they can do more work, different kinds of work. I got one guy that just do glass. That's all he wants to do is glass. There's not enough profit in it.
That work is a loss leader that you have to do, but you may not make that much money on
just like screens.
Interesting. How does a team come to understand what a loss leader looks like in their operation?
They don't work it that way. They don't even see it. They have no knowledge of it.
Really? So one of the pieces of yours and my conversation often goes into the analytics. It's the metrics. It's the measurements of what's going on in a business. When you first came in, one of the things you noticed was the inventory that was off. And your solution was install an ERP into the system to track all the inventory levels. How often do you find the answer is missing software or missing data to track?
It's not really missing data. It's probably, I would just say, the gathering of the information that comes into play and then identifying what your key performance indicators are. If you just throw data at something, it's like throwing mud against the wall and see if it falls or not. I mean, some of it will, some of it won't. But it took a lot of thought process to say, here's how you figure what your installer productivity is. In fact, the CRM I'm getting, Top Builder Inc., LLC, wanted that installer productivity report because they didn't have one. So I negotiated that. And I says, okay, I'll give it to you. He says, do you know what the field definitions and what tables we use? Well, yes, I do, because that's where I pull it from. And he now is installing that in our CRM. Well, that takes a manual process off of our invoicing clerk and puts it in an automated process. So that's a big benefit for our CRM, reducing the load on somebody else. So using a CRM isn't necessarily about increasing sales as much as it is increasing productivity.
How much time do you think that's going to reduce from your invoicing clerk?
Oh, 35, 40%. I may be in a situation that I could possibly combine 2, AP and AR, that includes the invoicing clerk, into one position. Right now I have it in 2. And if I can do that and do it with software, there's certain things that we can use AI as an example. Grab a PDF, grab the data from certain locations off of that PDF, put it in Sage 100, and then close that particular dialog window. And then that data gets posted. That can be done by AI. So if I can get that part done, that's the most labor intense for AP, I can make that one position, not 2.
That'll consolidate a lot of your overhead from
well, yeah, you save, an average pay is 60, 70, add benefits, you're 80. Yeah, that drops the bottom line.
So how receptive was this 50-some-odd-year-old company to you coming in and bringing in a lot of data and bringing in a lot of analytical feedback of how the business is performing?
The first person that was running the company, the vice president, operated off of a basis of fear. You're going to lose your job. You do this, you lose your job. You do this, you lose your job. There was no motivation really to speak of. I operate off of a different manner. I go by management by objective, MBO. So I try and set goals. So I've tried to change the culture. That vice president no longer works for us. In fact, we've had a complete turnover of staff in the 9 years, except for maybe 4 or 5 that have stayed with it since I bought the company. Well, when you change staff, you can change culture. You can change it pretty easy because then you can say, starting out day 1, this is your job. That changes the culture. Instead of having it be an ABC, we're going to make it do MNOPQRSTV, all the way through to Z. So you can add things and set up and then make it work the way you want to do it. Well, that's what I did, is I changed people. I changed the responsibilities of the individuals, and that changed the culture
What's it been like for new employees coming in who they see, oh, I'm going to be measured and all of my work. I'm going to see my productivity. If I'm an installer, I'm going to see my estimator volume on the sales side.
I don't get any of that feedback.
Don't get it, don't give it.
I don't get any of it.
What's been the response from your team? Because some of them were there before you put some of this feedback in, and now all of a sudden they're seeing their performance measured. What was that like for some of that team?
The fact that they're getting measured, I have no pushback at all. It's the reason, I think, because the pay plan incorporates it. So instead of just saying that here's your measurements, here's your closing ratio, now I've set up metrics saying you got to do this much productivity, and if you do it, you get the bonus. They never even knew what they sold, let alone what kind of money they made. What they had was a matrix given to them. Here's your cost of your parts. I want you to X modify by this matrix, and here's your labor, and I want you to X modify labor, add your sales tax, and go on down the road. Well, they didn't know what it did. They didn't know what the margin was. Now it's an education process. No, you can't give this away because you're killing your margin. And it's, everybody wants a discount. It's not the deal you get, it's the deal you think you get. And if the people our clients are realizing they're getting a good deal, they're gonna buy it. So that gets to the skill sets of the salespeople, the estimators. And the installers got to show up. We put uniforms on. We standardize processes. We standardize trucks, vans. We standardize how they enter information into the system. SOP was just as much of an insert as KPIs were.
It's kind of interesting you talk about changing the culture. You also change some of the process. You change the allocation of work. And it sounds like your team responded well to being given feedback, to being given clear allocation of work. And it sounds like the performance is now showing up in these metrics.
Well, when I bought the company, every year except for COVID and the year after, I've grown anywhere from 14 to 17%. And that's not a price increase. That's actual increase in sales. It's definitely grown. I had our best year last year, but I'm frustrated because expenses are so high. This state makes it very difficult to make a profit for a small business. They don't care. I mean, a good example is the shit going on with the city council in Minneapolis and the hotels that have a liquor license, and the city council saying, since you housed ICE in your hotels, we're not going to renew your liquor license. That's not the way things should be run. And that's the mentality that a lot of governing people in this state have. Well, you don't do that to a business. They're just trying to make a living and stay in business. And just because they're doing something, they can't turn those ICE people away. You can't discriminate. But that has a hell of an impact. In this state, they've passed a couple laws. You got, your ESST, you've got your paid family medical leave, where's all that lost productivity going to be made up? If those people take that time off and get paid for it, what about they get their job back at the end? Well, who's going to do the job while they're gone?
Well, you can just go hire temps, right? It's a pretty simple job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Construction and labor, there's always people lining up to do that kind of work,
right? And they have that
right?
specific knowledge. Like you go look at that door, it's got 3 hinges and a latch. I can tell you right now, it's a quick set door latch, and the hinges are a total different make. How many people are going to be able to tell you that? Not very many.
Come on, Sammy, you just rattled that off. How quick could it be? Quick on-the-job training, and now the sub's going to work for you, right?
Yeah, how many different selections? You asked me, what was the difference in the automobile business between this business? That automobile business was probably 2 times to 3 times easier.
One of the conversations that comes up in our world frequently is about the sophistication of craftsmanship and how the trades really are this long education process to be learning how to be effective in that. Selling automobiles wasn't quite the same process. You learn a lot about a lot of vehicles. You get pretty quick on it. What's different about the learning curve in the automotive business versus the learning curve that you bring in some of your green or younger installers to be able to get them up to speed with what you need?
It's not a real good analogy because you're not talking about selling a car. In that particular case, I would use as an analogy the technician that has to work on the car. Did you recently read the article that Ford put out that we're 20,000 technicians short right now, and we're probably going to be 100,000 short in 3 years? The same thing applies right now with the trades. Hundreds of thousands of positions are open. The problem is the education of the major people coming out don't want to go into the trades. That's starting to change because college doesn't have the allure and it's got such an expense. But it's the training issue. Because you get into an automobile, that technician working on that guy's probably got a master's degree. My installer of putting in a window or a door doesn't have to have that skill set that technician does on that automobile. But he's got to have a different skill set. He's got to be able to lay caulk. How would you like to have a window there and it's got bumps all the way around because the caulk was not put on correctly?
That never happens, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can look at cleanliness of the window. Or you clean it. Do you walk into the place, you put booties on? Do you lay a tarp down? I mean, there's some professionalism that comes into play over and above the skill sets that had to put in place. We had guys showing up with T-shirts that had, gangbanger messages on the. No, not anymore. We don't have any of that.
So it sounds like you, tongue-in-cheek, you've become Mr. Corporate. You've got systems, you've got SOPs, you've got metrics, you've got standard uniforms, you've cleaned it all up. How did you maintain a culture that wants to be there?
Well, that is not a detriment.
No?
I mean, they don't
Come
jump on it.
You sound like you're the man, Sammy.
I'm not trying to be the man. I'm just trying to make sure that we make a living. And that's the key. You got to care about your people. I had very little turnover last year. The least amount of turnover I ever had, and I had my best year in sales. They know because I make it available for them to know. All my estimators can see, there's our profit and loss. Here's our cash. Here's what we got here. They see it. So, times like right now when it's cold, a lot of snow, ice is in the Twin Cities, other things happening that tariffs, I can go on and on.
Yeah.
Our business sucks right now. But I look at it that we've reached the bottom and it's starting to luckily go back up just a little bit. We laid off quite a few people. We cut hours. And now I'm starting to put the people back in, estimators first, because they're selling it. They can't get their work done in the 4 days that they're working a week. Our scheduler is an example. He still works all 5 days, but he cut his hours by 20%. Once we see that his demand, we got the materials coming in, that kind of stuff, that demand starts to grow, he's going to have a lot more time having to schedule. Then he's going to have to stay a little longer. And we're going to gradually bring our people back, which will increase our expenses, but our sales will go up because we derive a sale when the product is installed, not when we originally get the sale made.
Sure.
It's 6 to 8 to 12 weeks down the road before that actually comes into fruition as money.
Sure. What's been really interesting has been watching your company respond to the level of information you provide back to them. You've empowered them. You've taught them how the business functions and works and how they've taken that and taken some responsibility for it.
That's more a benefit of their age.
Why? They're all getting older? They're all Gen X and boomers?
They're all Gen X and Gen Zs.
Really?
Millennials. Yeah. I've gotten rid of almost every baby boomer.
So thinking about someone who's watching this that is thinking about, maybe I should be thinking about Dore Glass as a place to come work. Why are you leaning in so heavy to these millennials, Gen Zs, and
because
Gen Xers?
They use that data. They understand it. They're used to picking up the phone and having the stuff immediately right here. The baby boomers don't do that. They write it by hand and put it on a piece of paper. I mean, it's that much of a difference. So no, I want those younger people that are quicker, that know what they're going on. All I got to do is just justify some of the decision-making processes that they don't have because they don't have the experience. That's the easy part.
So it's fascinating to hear you talk about some of the changes you've had to make. During slow season, Q1's always a little tougher on the trades. Weather impacts quite a bit of it. All the implications of what's going on in our economy. By you staying as close to the business as you are, you're not absentee by any means.
No.
You are very much active, saying we've got to make tweaks here and here. We've got to keep things tight because we're getting through a slow season. What's the team's response been through that?
Stress.
Do they appreciate that you're there, present, or is it more of a, Sammy, just make it work and then call me when
No,
you're
they
ready?
recognize and they have empathy for what I'm trying to get done. And I think that they're stressed because they see we're not making money. You know, they're concerned about their job, their livelihood, that kind of stuff. I don't have any issues with that. That's natural. They should be. I'm glad they are concerned.
With some of the changes, no, that's not the way to start that one. Maybe this one there. I've used the analogy of Dore Glass being a sandbox where some of your installers or your estimators can actually build something with their careers because of how you've provided the tools for them and you've provided the environment. Someone who's watching this might be thinking about their next career move. Why would you think Dore Glass is the appropriate sandbox for their next consideration for their move?
You brought up culture earlier, and there is quite a bit of difference between each company you go work for. In our car dealerships in Omaha, Nebraska, I had one right next to another. My father ran one. It was a mothership, Buick Pontiac GMC, and then I ran the other. It was Infiniti and Mitsubishi. And if you go into that dealership compared to the GM store, it was night and day because even though we were a family-run organization, we still had different ways in which we did things. My father's place was great for those baby boomers. They can go sit there, drink their cup of coffee, go outside, smoke their cigarette, whatever might be the case. I hired younger ones. I hired younger people, more aggressive, wanting to go, and they also communicated differently. That's a difference in culture right there. Dore Glass, I came back and said, okay, if somebody wants to come work for us, the difference is we take care of our own. We do take care of our people. I just hired an office manager. She's been working 65, 70 hours a week with no let up. She's got grandkids. She's been looking for a year for the right place. And as soon as she started talking to me on the phone before we even met, she quit looking. She said, I think I found the place. She told that to her husband. He drove her out to where we met. I made sure I went and said hi to him. He says, no one else has ever done that because we take care of our own. And there's a big issue right there. A lot of companies don't. You're just a number or a piece of meat until you wear out, then you're gone. I don't look at it that way.
Dore Glass is doing, making some waves in your guys' space right now. Where do you see it going over the next 5 years? Where's Dore Glass headed?
I want to try and come with a solution that this downturn that happens every first quarter, I want to find a product I can sell and my guys can install that will alleviate the big drop. So some of that stuff is down the road of how we're going to try and improve what we have is a bad area. The other parts, you go at March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, it's pretty busy, especially if the weather holds. Now, in November, if it gets cold, it's going to hurt us because you can't put caulk down when it's 10 below.
Sure.
Or it's wet. It doesn't stick. It's issues like that you have to try and overcome. So the trades are real good. The trades pay real good. My average installer is making $70,000, $75,000 a year without a college degree. And that ain't that bad. Really, it isn't. If you have two-income family, they could be making $125,000 a year. They could have a nice house, raise the kids. I look at it that way. I want my people to be able to go and get married, have kids, buy a house, all that kind of stuff, grow some roots. It's the turnover that occurs that doesn't allow that. And you gotta cancel the turnover. That's what I got done this past year.
So one of the conversations coming up in the peer groups quite a bit right now is some of the challenges that Minnesota is dealing with the challenges that they're putting on businesses. So if you're trying to advocate for the employees to be able to have a lifestyle, that means that the business has to be able to do enough business in this economy for the organization to keep growing. What happens in these situations where the economy is pulling back and there's a little bit of headwinds there. How do we advocate for a business that's trying to advocate for its employees when the economy is slowing down or pulling
Who's
back?
advocating for the business? You said we are advocating for the business. I said, who's we? Well, I don't see we. I look at it in long lot of spaces that this state is anti-business. I'm pretty darn convinced of that. The tax laws, everything, even if a property that's owned by a business is taxed at a higher rate than any other individual, that shouldn't be. They don't treat the companies right in this state. It's sad to see. I've had two people, one quit, one we terminated, sued us for non-legitimate reasons of dismissal or quit. They gather an attorney, and all of a sudden this state stands behind them in that manner. Wait a minute. One of them quit. How can he file a grievance of whatever, So we have to get our attorneys involved. That cost raises our costs, all kind of stuff. Well, that one that quit, he ended up winning $500. But his attorney got quite a bit more than that. But I look at it and I go, this is what's wrong with this state. That should not happen.
We had a manufacturer come through and talk about how they were going to be expanding. Their business was growing. They were taking on some pretty good projects, and they were going to look at staffing a facility in Minnesota or in Wisconsin.
I'd go Wisconsin all day long.
And after they did the math, they noticed that it was going to cost them about 40% more for the same employee base in Minnesota because of all the extra taxes, benefits, and the state implications of doing business there. And they said, we can't justify that. We have to go build in Wisconsin. It's a business decision. It's nothing against Minnesota. The environment is not conducive to helping us grow and stay viable.
You look at what this state has as far as the accusations of fraud and the support networks that have been established and all the other pieces of the puzzle that the state's put together, some with federal funding, but for the most part with state funding. That raises taxes to everybody. That raises fees to everybody. It doesn't stop. It needs to get more on par with what our neighboring states are. Minnesota's like the third or fifth highest taxed state for individuals. It's actually number 1 or 2 for corporations.
That does not bode well for wanting to build a business here.
No, it does not.
When you ask about the pronoun of who's the we advocating for business, it kind of feels like the corporations are speaking with their feet. There are more businesses that are starting to close down or relocate or move their enterprises. How do you think this is going to play out over the next 2-3 years if we don't change anything?
If we don't change anything,
yeah,
it's going to continue to go downhill.
What's the impact? Where are we going to see that?
Well, you're not having as much immigration right off the get-go.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see unemployment start to go up a little bit. Even though the immigrants are quit coming in here, you're going to have a depressing effect, and you're going to have a little bit of a downturn. There's no way to get around it. Look at the impacts we've had off of the George Floyd killing, off of the ICE killings, off of the way in which we had fraud thrown out, that our governor quit trying to go for re-election. I look at it and I go, this state has a fundamental problem at how they look at businesses, and that needs to change. I don't know, because I don't know the state's politicians well enough. I have not tried to get involved in that on purpose. I'm not a fan of politics, but I look at it that a lot of people don't have any clue. A good example is what I just brought up earlier about the license for liquor at a hotel.
Sure. Why
would that politician even do that? They have no clue. They've never had to run a business. They've never had to make a balance sheet. They've never had to make a payroll. They deal off of the public tax dollars.
So at what point, this is a conversation that's come up quite a bit, at what point do you feel like you have to look for the next politician or the next person to advocate for businesses at a policy level?
I don't know. I've not really taken that step. I've gone as far on the other side of saying, don't want to stay in Minnetonka. My lease is up at the end of the year. Do I want to buy a building, the one I'm in? Or do I want to buy a building?
In a more favorable municipality.
How about Wisconsin?
Sure.
You know, you look at it and you go, what can I get done there? Big questions I don't have answers to.
Yeah, we've had this conversation happen a couple times with some of the different cities around the metro that are just making it even more difficult to do business in there. We've got all the municipalities collecting different sales tax for different cities, different zip codes. And a lot of folks are not seeing what does it mean when business owners are talking about this is not a business conducive region.
Oh, sales tax is horrible.
Is it a necessary evil? Like we got to have some of it? Is it too much of it? Or is there any checks and balances against it? Why is it so horrible?
There are 96 municipalities within the metropolitan statistical area that comprising the Twin Cities. That means there's 96 different sales tax policies.
Where does that fall on a business? Like who has to deal with that?
Whenever you buy product, you are paying a sales tax, even if you go for resale. So when you buy that product, and if you resell it for the same price you bought it for, you don't pay any more sales tax. But when you buy it at that cost, you do pay that sales tax. I have all my vendors collect it because I don't want to have to remit it to the state. But every little sales tax that's added on, like Minneapolis is an add-on, St. Paul's an add-on, Maple Grove's an add-on, Edina's an add-on. They're all different.
Sure.
So then you got to put it in your system and make sure that that's right. What if you miss and you're in one city here, but because of the zip code over here, it's actually at a higher rate than it is here? Well, you get audited. Their process to audit, they go into a sampling, then they extrapolate it for a year, then they multiply it by 3, and that's your error rate, and that's what they're going to charge you. Last time I got audited, it cost me $83,000.
So let me play devil's advocate of the customer saying like, well, isn't that your job? Like you're the business. You're supposed to have that stuff figured out, right?
It's not that easy to figure out. Go ahead and try and report it. You have a list of every county. You have all the different taxes you got to put in there. Now there's the Hennepin County Transit Tax. Now there's the Metropolitan Council tax. There's these are all sales taxes, okay? So yeah, you got to become very educated. And guess what? If you're not educated, the state doesn't care because you're supposed to be. But they don't hold your hand to show you what you're supposed to be doing. Try and contact somebody from the state. You're not going to talk to them in the office. They're remote. You try and get a response, it's 2 or 3 days. Everything is slowed down. It's got to change. This state needs to change the way they treat businesses.
So, Sammy, was it all the automotive industry that taught you all this? How did you learn business?
I read a ton. How many books did you read last year, Josh?
Probably north of 30.
Yeah, I did 104.
You're a reader or a listener?
I read.
What was your favorite book of last year?
Tom Clancy came out with a brand new one.
Did you read a lot of Tom Clancy?
I like those kind of genre. Yeah.
One of the things that we talk about frequently in the peer groups is like that you can't learn it all by yourself. You can't possibly be exposed to enough information alone.
You have to have professional advisors at your assistance.
So your participation with CBC over the last 2-3 years has made a huge impact on so many others because of how well read you are, because of how much you've dug into business, because of how much you've dug into the legal and the accounting aspects of business. It's made you a huge influence in the room in a very, very positive way. You've got it all figured out, right?
No.
What do you mean? You're so well read. You're so well spoken.
That make a difference.
Why not?
Execution.
Execution of what?
Your business plan, how you put it together, make sure it works, make sure you keep all the bells, up in the air at the same time, that kind of stuff. Don't miss one. We missed one in October. We had a great big job. We thought we did a great job in October. We didn't see the slowdown.
We had one of our members last year had a really big job, and they didn't realize that they had misbid it and misquoted it. And so
that's that landscape job.
Over the summer, we kind of got to see how that played out. And in the end, they paid a substantial amount of money to go install that job for that customer because
I've been there.
they misbid it. So one of the things we frequently find ourselves talking about in these peer groups is like, how do you check your blind spots?
Duh.
How do you get
That's why I'm
exposed?
putting a CRM in, is I want to have a lot of the blind spots gone. I want more eyes on the communications going back and forth between the individuals.
So in the space of a group, how do they help you spot those blind spots?
At like CBC, you know, a lot of times that's how the meetings are structured, and what you have is your agenda, you know, what your thrusts are, how you're trying to come back. Are you going to talk financials? Are you going to talk on HR? Or are you going to talk on advertising? Or are you going to talk on whatever might be the case? So depending upon what they are at makes the difference as whether or not it's going to have an impact on me or my business. I'm not saying I know it all, because I don't. I'm smart enough to know that I can have somebody that's got a better idea than I do, and I'm going to steal it. You know, I don't profess that I know it all. You know, sometimes these guys think that, oh, you've had this experience, and I'll come back and go, yeah, that one bit me in the ass, that one bit me in the ass, and luckily I got that one done. And I got 1 out of 3. So perception's reality. I mean, they think that, you know, you got somebody that's older, should have that experience, should have that knowledge. Yeah, but they also have some failures, and that's why they learn. They learn from the failures. They don't learn from the successes.
Sammy, you've been a huge contribution to CBC. So I have just a couple more questions for you today. What's a hard piece of feedback you had to give that changed someone's trajectory?
Ooh. I had my current warehouse manager in a position as an estimator, and he did not own a vehicle. And in the span of about 18 months, he had 6 close calls or accidents. And I said to him, I said, you know, you don't own a car, so you don't necessarily understand what you're doing sometimes. It's totally outside your purview. I said, you need to make sure that you have a circle around you that is of your influence within your automobile. So instead of just saying that I have to control that 4 or 5 feet around my vehicle, behind me, in front of me, and to the side, that's not enough. I said, you need to be out 50, 60, 70 feet and being aware what everybody else is doing. But you're not doing that because you're fiddle farting around with whatever you've got going on in your mind, driving down the road with that 5-foot buffer. I said, because if you don't change, you're going to lose your job because you can't have a car because the insurance company is going to shut you off. And he looked at me and he goes, I never thought about it that way. I says, yeah, you got to expand your circle. He's not had an accident since. No speeding tickets, no nothing. He's been excellent.
When did transparency backfire?
Oh, that's a good one. Transparency backfire. One time I had to give someone access, and I had to give them access to payroll, unfortunately. And you don't want to do that. That backfired.
Can cause some questions and a lot of bickering internally.
Why is it that person got more than I did? Yeah.
Have you had to remove anyone, or have they self-selected because of your higher standards?
I've had to remove quite a few that did not meet the standards. Of installers, I had ones that quality kept on having complaints from clients, that kind of stuff. I got rid of them. I put a very, very low threshold of acceptance of poor quality. I have a higher level of acceptance of knowledgeability of the estimator, so that when we go look for somebody to hire, they've got to have a certain level of competence. Trying to bring them from just 0.0 up, that's very expensive and very time consuming. It takes almost 9 months to a year to get a guy up and running, just to build his backlog enough that he'll be able to make enough money, $150,000 a year. It takes that long to build that kind of a backlog. So it's awful hard. It's not easy, but it can be done.
What belief about the trades culture do you think is outdated?
Well, there's a lot of unions that have a lot of big self-worth.
Self-worth.
Yeah, they think they're better than anybody else. They have their training programs. It's state approved. They got the National Labor Board, supporting them. They got legislation. They got the Democrats are picking, their union favorites, that kind of stuff. And this state's mainly Democratic. I see, one of the reasons why we came up here was because we were going to have grandkids. And my daughter asked us to come up here. The reason she's up here is because she's a nurse, was a nurse, now a nurse practitioner. But the reason she moved up here as a nurse is because she went union and the wages were 40% higher. Guess what? My wages for my installers are 40% higher than a comparable state, let's just say Nebraska or Kansas or whatever. It's 40% higher.
For your installer team.
Just to be competitive. And what drives that is the increased expenses of how to live here. I mean, when I bought a house, I thought, well, okay, the lot's worth $25,000. It's a postage stamp lot. House has been here since the 40s. I talked to my accountant. He says, oh, no, that lot's probably worth $100,000. I couldn't believe it. It was in Minneapolis. House has been there since the 40s, and that lot was worth $100,000. And it was a postage stamp lot. I look at that and I go, why is that? Why is it that it's so high of appeal to live in this state? And there is a lot of appeal to live here. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of lakes. There's a lot of boats. There's a lot of hunting, fishing, snowmobiling, skiing. There's just everything you want to do when it goes to outdoors work out here. Why should it cost so much more? It shouldn't. But there's a lot more people too. So that demand is there. They can raise the price and derive from it. Well, it's got a backside. Your price goes up. Guess what? The person's going to have to be able to pay for it. Has got to go up to be able to pay for it. I mean, it's a vicious cycle.
Absolutely. If Dore Glass doubled tomorrow, what part of the system?
Doubled in what?
Doubled in sales.
Okay.
If your closing ratio went to 100% and you guys
that ain't
get
gonna
it,
happen, but yeah.
If it doubled, what part of your system would feel it first?
Warehouse.
Not enough space. Not enough bandwidth.
Not enough space. Not enough people. That takes material. You have to push a ton of material. I just did the PO list and had to clean that up just today for my new office manager. And plus, we got the CRM coming on board and some other things. And the amount of purchase orders that we do on a monthly basis just astounds me. Because, like I said, that door hinge and that door latch, those are two different vendors.
Ugh.
You don't necessarily get one vendor to do that. Oh, it's got a glass in the middle. Well, that's another vendor. And then they got the wood on the outside. Well, that's another vendor. So there's 4 vendors right there just for that one door. Start multiplying that and put windows in. I mean, it becomes quite remarkable that we have the knowledge we do and the vendors that we do, that we get the stuff that we can do our job. There's no book that says this is your glazing, this is where you go.
It's kind of cool to hear you talk about the intellectual property of Dore Glass, of what it takes to get the volume of work out the door that your team does. It's been an impressive part of
We did a strategic plan, which we presented at the CBC, and I was real proud of it. We put a lot of effort in it. I got to throw it out.
The whole thing?
With what's happened since we closed doing that, which was the first week of December, to what's happened all the way through this city, this metro, and all the weather and all, no, I'm not even half of where I thought I would be
at this point.
At this point
already.
for the 2 months, So we're going to have to revamp that, readjust. So we're not going to operate with as many people. We've got some laid off. They may be permanent. We don't know yet. And we're working on that as we go forward. It's not easy because I care about my people. And that is very difficult when you have to say, I'm going to lay you off, but it's even worse when you terminate and you know they got a kid, they're married, they got a house payment, a car payment. But if they're not making it work where we're at, I can't continue carrying them.
Last two comments for you. If a customer calls up Dore Glass, why are you guys, who are you best suited to solve a problem for?
Well, homeowners are one of our big clients, but the biggest ones are property management companies. You know, ones that manage the apartment buildings, senior living facilities, commercial properties, that type of stuff. So they're the ones that we do a lot of business with. And surprisingly enough, there's a ton of turnover in that business. So those property managers are sometimes stay 8 months, maybe 9 months, and then they'll turn. Then you reinvent the wheel. You got to go reestablish the relationship. You got to make sure it's the same, because they don't tell you they leave. And the new person coming on doesn't know you exist. So you get a situation, oh, you do insulated glass unit replacement? Yeah, I do that. Okay, boom, you get it done. You get our business. But we send the window business to somebody else. Wait a minute, we do that too. Oh, I didn't know that. It's a re-education process every time.
What makes you guys unique?
Well, the type of business we do, there's not very many that do it. I mean, to tear apart a window and just put a new piece of glass in, to tear apart a door frame out of, concrete, to putting in a new door system for a house, to putting all new windows in a house or all new windows in an apartment building. We've got a quote coming from the St. Paul Housing Authority that's got a 17-story building that they're going to put, this type of stuff. The guy reached out to me because I'd met him before, and he says, you do this kind of, I go, heck yeah, we do. Well, I thought you did. Well, I'm going to myself, he should have known we did. And that's a failure on me. And that's what I'm going to correct.
We are looking forward to seeing your new marketing engine start to rev. That's going to be a really, really cool for the Dore Glass brand.
Yep.
Any last thoughts, questions, comments that I have left out that someone should really be thinking about when they think about Dore Glass?
We are the premier glazing company in the Twin Cities. There are a lot of competition out there. There's some that stick just with new construction. We do a little bit of new construction. There are some that don't want to do any of the service work. We thrive in the service works. We try and be on a little different. And I look at, we survey our clients. Hardly anybody in the trade survey their clients. I know how our clients perceive us. The next step I've got to do is make sure that they become aware of what we do in total. And that's where those marketing efforts are going to come. It's going to be a challenge, but I still think 2026 is going to be a pretty good year. Just because it's been slow doesn't mean it will stay that way. You're going to have some pent-up demand. That'll go forward and come out. But how much we get of it's the question mark. So it's a struggle. I mean, it definitely is a struggle. Within the little environment we're in with the property management companies, we've got a good rep.
Sammy, thank you for coming on for another conversation of CBC Talks. Thank you for being a member of CBC, for being part of this conversation, and for being one of the advocates for business in this state. You are very much one of those that we include in that conversation. So,
thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Enjoy doing it.
If this conversation is resonating with you, it's probably because you're the kind of leader we built the Creative Business Council for. Our peer groups are designed for owners and leaders who want more than just ideas. They want accountability, clarity, and the chance to sit at the table with people facing the same challenges. The Creative Business Council is looking for leaders like you. Sit in on one of our peer groups and see the difference for yourself. Just click the link in the description.